present. And don't forget, you can set the Times news briefing as your flash briefing on Alexa.
Across the UK, on DAB, online and on your smart speaker. Jane Garvey and Fee Glover on Times Radio with Wickes Kitchens and Bathrooms.
So welcome to what hopefully is a positive afternoon in terms of the geopolitics of the world. It's 2:04 and tracking the peace deal is our most important mission this afternoon. It's where we'll start right away. Also on the programme, we're going to talk to a young woman who's hoping to prise open the door to the rather closed art world in this country. The Nobel Prize for Literature has been announced. We're going to give you a rundown on the winner. And the car finance chaos rumbles on. Are you owed £700? And if you are, how will you get it? How will you know? What are you expected to do? All of those questions will be answered by the fantastic Holly Mead. And after 3:30, we've got a real treat for you if you are a fan of good writing, good crime fiction writing, and Vera off the TV.
Yep. After 3:30 this afternoon, you can relax in the company of Anne Cleeves, who is back with a new Jimmy Perez book for the autumn. The Killing Stones is set, though, not on Shetland, but on Orkney. Unfortunately, a murder has occurred, and it is the murder of a man called Archie Stout. Now, he's a difficult character. Some people thought he was the life and soul. Other people didn't like the cut of his jib one bit. But one of his good friends was Jimmy Perez, who is called to Orkney to investigate the murder. So it's fascinating. Anne Cleeves is just a good woman. She's a solid citizen who doesn't just write best-selling books and inspire fantastically successful TV shows. She does a lot of work on, all sorts of other things, doesn't she? Literacy is one of her big projects, and she's gone into prisons and done work there. She's a big supporter of libraries. She's a really good woman. So Anne Cleeves with us after 3:30 this afternoon.
And at what time does the temperature in our studio heat up just a little bit with the arrival of Jane Mulkerrins?
I'm just looking at the running order.
I think it's just 45 minutes to go.
I think Jane will be with us. I have to say that I've rather enjoyed reading the articles in the Times magazine, which comes your way, of course, on Saturday. We get a sneak peek today. And they're very good. And there's not really any smart fee.
Okay, so let's see whether or not the smartometer still goes off.
There'll be no klaxon sounding in this week's chat with Jane.
We are going to talk about the front cover pieces about how a dog can mend a broken heart. Yeah. So a little bit of something that will remain cheery is definitely going to be on our agenda this afternoon. We are always 0333 003 2353, and we are always Jane and Fee at times.radio. The most read stories so far today are...
At number 3, Victoria Beckham, my fake boobs, I buried them in Baden-Baden. Hilary Rose has written about the former Spice Girls' new Netflix show. Now, in it, Victoria Beckham talks about her ego, her eating disorder, her career struggles, and how she just killed off her wag persona. At number 2, the second most read story is Gaza ceasefire deal live. Trump says Israel and Hamas agree peace plan. That is the Times live page. You can find all the latest updates on the ceasefire, and we'll obviously cover that story in just a moment here on Times Radio. The most read piece on the Times website is Jeremy Clarkson delighted as Caleb Cooper heads to Australia. Clarkson has probably racked up more air miles than just about anybody else, but his farm manager has never been on a plane before. The 20-hour flight down under might just be a challenge for Caleb, who is going to film a farming documentary. We wish him the very best. You can read all of these articles on thetimes.com. You will need a digital subscription, and you can get one by going to thetimes.com/subscribe.
So Israel says it has signed the final draft of its ceasefire deal with Hamas ahead of its full ratification this evening. The remaining living hostages are expected to be returned from Gaza by Monday. Explosions, however, continue to be heard across the Strip in the run-up to the ceasefire coming into effect. The timeline for signing the deal has been set out by Israeli government spokesperson Shosh Bedrosian.
Tonight at 5 p.m. Israel time, there will be a cabinet meeting. And at 6 p.m. Israel time, there will be a government meeting taking place. Now, within 24 hours after the cabinet meeting takes place, a ceasefire will then begin in Gaza. The IDF will then redeploy to the yellow line as shown on maps, which have been widely distributed at this point in time. And now after this 24-hour period, the 72-hour time window will then begin, where all of our hostages will be released back into Israel.
Sir Keir Starmer has welcomed the breakthrough.
This will come as a profound relief for the hostages and their families and the civilian population in Gaza and for the whole world. And we will now work with our partners to ensure that this deal is implemented in full and without delay.
Well, let's talk more with Yotam Confino, Middle East correspondent and author of Netanyahu's Israel, Rise at the Far Right. Yotam, do you join us from Hostage Square in Tel Aviv?
I am joining you from Hostage Square, where people are quite joyful, obviously very excited, nervous, but most people that I speak to are extremely hopeful that we're finally seeing an end to the two-year war and the release of the hostages on Monday.
We have explained to our listeners the timeline that's expected across the rest of the day. There is still a cabinet meeting that needs to formalise the deal. Is it feasible that the right-wing coalition partners in that cabinet would still be able to stop this?
No, because there are only two people that are definitely opposed to this deal, and that is the Religious Zionism Party and the Jewish Power Party. But even without those votes, the rest of the government will have a majority to pass this deal. So everyone is expecting that this is going to happen. Netanyahu has also announced it. He wouldn't announce it if he didn't know that he had the necessary votes. So the far-right parties might not be on board. They might even end up leaving his coalition, triggering elections. But we're definitely expecting that they're voting in favor of this peace deal in a few hours.
And is anything, do you think, likely to change in the deal, or is the formalisation literally just that? The actual conditions of this deal will stay?
You know, there are so many things that are still actually not public yet. For example, whether Marwan Barghouti, who is a hero among Palestinians and a terrorist for Israel, someone who's serving life in prison for killing 5 people in the Second Intifada, will he be on the list of some of those 250 Palestinian prisoners who are said to be released? We don't know that yet. And that is quite a crucial point. It's one of a few points that are left relatively vague, including whether Hamas will disarm, and of course, who's going to be in charge of securing that they have disarmed. But it doesn't matter. Currently, the first phase is agreed on, and the most important thing is happening, which is, of course, in 24 hours, all hostilities will end, more aid will come in, of course, and the release of the hostages. But there are things that can go wrong when you don't have the details completely agreed on. So it is a bit surprising that both Israel and Hamas announced overnight that they had agreed on a deal when there are still quite important details to iron out. I believe it's because they know that they will somehow reach a compromise. They just had to have a little bit more time to find them.
And do you also believe that actually that the need to have this deal announced today and formalised by the end of today is to do with the pressure being placed upon Israel by Donald Trump?
I think so, but both Hamas and Israel are under tremendous pressure. Obviously, Donald Trump has told Israel, you need to get this over the line, but he's told Hamas the same. He's also given Hamas a deadline. So both parties knew that they could not drag this on for weeks. Israel also wasn't interested in dragging this on for weeks. So they knew that they had to agree, at least on the first phase, on the very fundamentals of stopping the war, Israel withdrawing to a specific line, which leaves them still in place of roughly half of Gaza, and of course the release of Palestinian prisoners. But the coming hours, the coming days will be extremely crucial, because if something goes wrong, it could potentially derail the whole thing, and then the blame game starts. We've seen that many times before in the last 2 years.
How do you believe that Hamas can be contained in future years? You've got huge expertise of, the dreadful potential that this terrorist organisation has. So I don't want to diminish people's hope and optimism today, but it would be so naive not to have that conversation, wouldn't it?
Look, you're right in asking that question. Absolutely. I don't think that it's right to try and tell the Palestinian and the Israelis that this is going to be peace forever and ever. There is still a terrorist organization that is not going to just hand over their weapons and sing Kumbaya and become a peace organization overnight. That's not going to happen. Hamas' main goal, their raison d'etre, their reason to exist is to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. They have lost the war now. And what I believe is that they're going to take their time. They have plenty of time to slowly but surely lick their wounds, try to recruit new people, do some, trying to get some weapons stored here and there. That's what I think is going to happen. But,
what do you think, as well, Yotam, will happen to Benjamin Netanyahu's government now?
Look, I think we're headed for elections. That's the feeling on the ground here in Israel. When Netanyahu announced in the White House all of a sudden that he had agreed to this 20-point plan, everyone in Israel who knows Netanyahu knew that we're headed for elections, because he knows that his far-right coalition partners could potentially topple him. And he's calculating with that risk. Netanyahu is quite risk-averse. So he thinks that right now is the time for him to do something that is definitely being welcomed in the Israeli public. There's huge public support for this deal. And if Netanyahu is headed for elections, he's got, as usual, an advantage because he's the prime minister. He can sell this deal to the public as him being the most responsible prime minister they have to choose from. And he's the most experienced politician by far. So even if polls show that he's currently not going to win, I don't think you should count Netanyahu out, especially not when you have 3 months of election campaigns in Israel.
Yotam, thank you very much indeed for joining us this afternoon. That's Yotam Confino, Middle East correspondent. He's also the author of a book called Netanyahu's Israel. There are a couple of young boys, I'd say aged 8 or 9, who are hanging around the camera behind Yotam giving us the thumbs up. So we send a thumbs up back today. Also on the line is Maoz Inon, an Israeli entrepreneur who lost his parents in the October 7th attack. Maoz, a very good afternoon from us in London. Can I first simply ask you how you're feeling today?
I'm feeling that what we've been working for in the last 2 years, my siblings, the Israeli-Palestinian peace camp, and me personally, is actually happened. We've been working very hard to bring this war to an end and to start a negotiation and a conflict resolution process. And this is exactly what's happening today. And this should be only the first step in profound, invested reconciliation process between the Israelis and Palestinians that will bring a lasting peace and will prevent the next war to happen. And we still got a lot of work ahead of us, but it's a great first step.
What do you think the key things are that now have to happen in order to ensure a lasting peace?
There are many things. And first, we need to be also aware that the extremists on both sides might try to sabotage this peace process. And we need to keep on working together, the Israelis and Palestinians, to envision a shared future, to envision a better reality, and to continue our efforts and work in making it happen. And we need the international community to be aware and pressure our politicians. It was very clear in the last 2 years that there are no leaders, not in the Israeli society and not in the Palestinian society. We have only politicians that thrive by sacrificing their life. They sacrificed my parents, they sacrificed the hostages. That's from the Israeli side, and from the Palestinian side, the Hamas has been sacrificing the life of the civilians in Gaza. And I'm sure those parties will try and continue to sabotage the future we all deserve, a future that is based on equality, on dignity, and security and safety to all.
Do you believe what Yotam said, though, about the turn in favour that will be enjoyed by Benjamin Netanyahu? And you have been critical of his government in the past for sacrificing hostages. So does it slightly irk you that he may benefit politically now, even though he has, in some people's eyes, delayed this moment for his own political gain?
So what I care the most is that the solution will be a political solution, and not solution that is trying to be achieved on the battlefield and by sacrificing people. And after October 7th, I was furious. I was full of hunger and hate and wanted to punish and take my revenge in the Israeli government. But through the work I was doing with my Palestinians, partners and brothers, I learned that I can choose forgiveness. That I can choose forgiveness in order to save my own soul from the destiny those who are accountable for the death of my parents choose for me. And since then I've been choosing radical forgiveness. I forgive the Israeli government and I forgive Hamas. I care only about the future, and I don't care who will be credited for achieving a lasting peace and learning about conflict areas around the world, that many times peace treaties are being signed by those who only a day before was still killing and massacring innocent people.
Yeah.
And what I care is only about ensuring a future of reconciliation, a future of equality, and who will be credited for that, I cannot care less.
Well, I admire your human spirit. You are the best of all of us, without a doubt. But can I ask you whether you believe that the people of Gaza can become strong enough to reject Hamas from within? Because surely the only real way to get a lasting peace is to give strength to the Palestinian people, to reject terrorism, to reject violence.
So again, this same question can be asked also to the people of Israel. Are we strong enough to reject Benjamin Netanyahu? And I'm saying again that I could not care less. What is important is that the solution will be a political solution. And Hamas is a fundamental terrorist organization that killed and murdered my parents and so many of my childhood friends, can also change his way. And from being a warmonger and a terrorist organization, it can become a political organization. And it was also proved in Israel in the past. One of our former prime ministers, Menachem Begin, who was a Nobel Prize laureate for signing peace with Egypt in 1977, but till the independence of Israel, till the year of 1948, he was the commander of the Irgun, a terrorist Jewish militia that was in charge for killing innocent people, if it's Palestinians or Brits. And he was a wanted terrorist by the Brits. So he changed his way. Yep. And I believe like Menachem Begin changed his way, and many other terrorists and terror organizations, I believe Hamas can be pressured to change its way and to choose the political way and the political field and not the battlefield and the massacre.
It's so good to talk to you today. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. That's Maoz Inon, who is an Israeli entrepreneur. And as he mentioned there, he lost his parents in the October 7th attack. And I think his journey since then is quite a remarkable one.
Yeah, really impressive man. Now, next on Times Radio, how do you learn to do art? How do you learn to appreciate it and to know exactly what's permissible to say about it? Our guest is going to explain everything next. It is 22 minutes past 2. It's Jane and Fee on Times Radio with Wix, the experts in kitchens and bathrooms.
It's one small step for man.
The UK's first human heart transplant has been completed, supported by the British Heart Foundation.
We were a noisy generation, but it might be something quiet we do that becomes our greatest legacy. Leave a gift in your will to the British Heart Foundation and fund groundbreaking research that could help save millions of lives. Search BHF Wills.
If you could sail anywhere in the world, where would you go? With Oceania Cruises, our small luxurious ships allow us to dock in boutique ports in 600 stunning destinations. We offer a more immersive experience and a personalized service, creating unique travel memories. From the Caribbean to the Mediterranean and the finest cuisine at sea, it can only be Oceania Cruises. Visit oceaniacruises.com or your travel agent.
At By Association, we stay one step ahead of the property market, which is why our award-winning consultants know that Manchester has recently overtaken London as the UK's top hotspot for residential property. With an ever-expanding city centre, new transport links and a booming